Hello, everybody. We're going to start. First of all, thank you very much to be here in this session. I know that there are other so interesting sessions at this moment. So, first of all, thank you for being here in a session conducted for someone that speaks Spanish and not English. Sorry if my English is not perfect along the session. And if you don't understand something that I say, please ask me. I'll try to do it better. So I'm Omar Saldaña. I'm a member of Invictus Research Group from the University of Barcelona, Spain. We are a group that has been researching in violence in interpersonal context from a long time ago. We have studied intimate partner violence, violence in terrorist groups, also mobbing or harassment in the workplace, and also those abuses that can be exerted in certain group contexts. So the so-called cults, high demand groups, or other names that these kind of groups in which violence takes place towards their own members happen. This afternoon, I will present a research that we are conducting in the last months. The title of the session is "What Fuels Extreme Progroup Behavior: The Devoted Actor Model in Group Contexts." For several years, we have studied psychological abuse in group contexts from the lens of victimization. How people that are engaged in certain groups experience different forms of violence, especially psychological violence. How they experience emotional abuse, isolation, control of their personal life, indoctrination, and so on. But in the last year, we want to gather other kind of experiences of members, former members, survivors of cultic groups, focusing on the behaviors that they have perpetrated in such group contexts and that might be unethical or abusive. So we are focusing now. Of course, we are continuing studying victimization, but now we are focusing on perpetration. Because we think that in this kind of groups, members, due to diverse causes, have a double role. They are victims, but sometimes they also perpetrate some behaviors towards other group members. And to get a full picture of their experiences, we think that studying both kind of experiences are important. For example, many outcomes, many difficulties that the survivors might express, like self-blame or guilt, might be explained not only because the abuses they have experienced, but some behaviors that they have conducted while in the group. Yes? 2 or 3 years ago, we conducted a study with former members, survivors of different cultic groups and non-abusive groups. And we find that they had experienced abuse, but they are also, some of them at least, have perpetrated some abuses. This study is different. In this study, we are not gathering survivors of cultic groups, but active members of any kind of group. And we are not studying what they have done or what they are doing in their groups, but what they are willing to do for their groups. Okay? We categorized or we think in abuses that someone can do towards fellow members as extreme pro-group behavior as other extreme pro-group behaviors as self-sacrifice or violence towards outsiders. And when we want to know which variables, which phenomena causes that people are willing to do these extreme pro-group behaviors in any kind of group, in non-violent groups, in non-abusive groups, in non-cultic groups, as well as in cultic groups. We are researching the causes of this perpetration, and that's what this study is focused on. Sorry. To explain perpetration of such kind of behaviors, we use, among other variables, the devoted actor model. I don't know if you know this model. Have you read about this model? No. Okay, I'll explain briefly the model. The devoted actor model explains that people are willing to make costly sacrifice and engage in extreme actions when they are fused with their groups and upholds sacred values. So 3 variables or 3 phenomena combine to explain the devoted actor model. First of all is identity fusion. Identity fusion is a theory related to identity, really recent, from the last 10 years. But it has accumulated a lot of evidence. Identity fusion leads in, or is a strong sense of oneness with the group. Identity fusion, or people that are fused with their groups, are people whose personal identity is fused with the social identity of the group. So personal and group identities become one identity. There is some reciprocal strength. That means that people that are fused think that they are doing, or think no, they are willing to do all for their group, and they think that their group are doing all for them. There's a reciprocal strength, and also a sense of invulnerability. The thing that fused people, their identity is fused with their groups, and they are willing to do many behaviors, extreme behaviors, to defend their groups. The devoted actor model not only for this model is not only important the identity fusion, but also other phenomena, the sacred values. Sacred values are deeply held moral beliefs, non-negotiable, not open to trade-offs. They are defended with absolute conviction. And in the cases in which people are fused with a group that has a sacred value, those people are devoted actors, and they are willing, and they do, extreme actions for their groups that combines irrational thoughts with personally costly behaviors, with violence towards outsiders, and willingness to self-sacrifice for the group or to defend these sacred values. This is the theory. A theory, there's a graph to explain the theory. This is the personal identity. According to the devoted actor model, personal identity is fused with the group. You are the group, and anything that threats the group threats you. So you respond to any threat to the group as is a threat to yourself. But also, from this perspective, you are also fused with some kind of values that are sacred for you. What kind of values? I don't know. For example, love to God, or for example, honesty, or for example, America, or for example, I don't know, any kind of value that is sacred for the individual. If the individual is fused both with the group, and this group has a value that is sacred, he is willing to do different kinds of extreme pro-group behaviors, as costly behaviors, violence, self-sacrifice, and so on. A lot of research has demonstrated this relationship, or that devoted actors are willing to do many things for their groups. This model was initially developed by Atran and other researchers to explain extreme forms of radicalization and costly behaviors carried out by members of terrorist organizations. For example, suicide bombings. I'll show you a case. Think about Omar. Think that Omar is fused with a jihadist group and sees the defense of Islam as a sacred and absolute duty, as a sacred value. He believes that Western military presence in Muslim lands is a direct attack to his sacred value. Because of this, he is willing to carry out a suicide bombing targeting enemy forces. See the three constructs that combines in this model. First, the group to which the person is fused, then the sacred value, and then the extreme pro-group behavior. In this case, doing a suicide bombing. But also, recent research has demonstrated that this model can be applied to members of non-violent groups, of non-abusive groups, who engage in personally costly yet prosocial behaviors, for example, peaceful activism. For example, think in Emma, that is fused with a LGBTQ association, and she perceives that values that defended by the association, like freedom, are sacred and non-negotiable. She is willing to engage also in personally costly actions, but not be violent actions. For example, she is willing to travel to attend the last Pride event in Budapest, which has been banned. It was banned, as you know, even if it could lead to her arrest. This is also a costly action to her. And because she is fused with a group, and the group has a value that is sacred for her, she is willing to do, and she do, some costly behaviors. Until now, this model has not applied to understand other kind of violence or abuses, those that can be held within a group context between a member towards other members. From our research group, we think that psychological abuse perpetrated in group context might be another kind of extreme behavior that devoted actors are willing to do to defend their group, to defend their value, or the value represented by the group. We hypothesize that the model might also help to explain the perpetration of abusive behaviors towards fellow group members, a dynamic that, as you know, it's commonly observed in coercive cults or in high demand groups. For example, John is fused with Jehovah's Witness community, and he comes to see love and obedience to God as sacred, non-negotiable values. Because of this, he is willing to accept, justify, and even participate in the shunning of former members who in some way disobeyed God and have been disfellowship. Does it means for you? Again, there's a group to which John is fused. Again, there are some values that are sacred for the group and for John. And again, there are some costly behaviors that he is willing to do. The objective of this study is to analyze whether the devoted actor model is useful or not for explaining the willingness to engage in extreme behaviors among active members of different kind of groups. We will try to analyze if the fusion both with the group and with the value can explain fighting or dying for the group, fighting or dying for the value, and also tolerance to psychological abuse behaviors conducted towards fellow members. Of course, we are working with active members, and we are not asking what they have done, okay, but what they are willing to do, as other studies have done in radicalization organizations. We have administered an online questionnaire to 2,235 Spanish and English-speaking individuals who were active members of groups of various kinds, religious, political, therapeutic, and so on. In this sample, there are active members of groups that might be cultic, but the great majority are active members of, in principio, maybe non-violent, non-abusive groups. Okay. And regarding the sample, regarding gender, the percentages are really similar. The age was 18 to 90 years old, with a mean of 42. The country of birth, as you can see, the distribution is parallel between Spanish people, Mexican people, people from the States and from the United Kingdom. The type of group, 35% was religious and 64% was non-religious. They have spent from 1 to 76 years within the group, with a mean of 30 years in the group. The position in a scale from 1 to 5 was 2 and 16, so they have a middle position in the hierarchy of the group, and their involvement is really high. In a scale from 1 to 7, they have an involvement of 5.1. So they have a medium position, but most of them were highly involved within their groups. Regarding the inclusion criterion, we asked them, we assured that all of them were over 18 years old, with a membership higher than 1 year, and that they belonged to a specific group that couldn't be the family and couldn't be a work group. Okay. The online questionnaire included several measures. In this session, I will speak about those that appears in the presentation, in the slide. It included socio-demographic and biographical variables, the group psychological abuse tolerance scale. That is a scale that we developed for this study. I will show you some items in the next slide, on the next slides. The willingness to fight and die scale from Swan et al. From 29. The dynamic identity fusion scale from Jimenez et al. From 2015, and other scales that are not covered in the present study. As you can see, we use a dynamic scale to assess identity fusion, both with the group and also with the value. We use a scale to assess the willingness to fight and die for the group, and also with little adaptations for the value that they told us that the group has. And we use a scale to assess those behaviors that are abusive to our fellow members that they are disposed or not to do. This is a capture of the questionnaire regarding the socio-demographic questions: age, gender, country of birth, and there are more than this. But just to show you how is the questionnaire. This is a scale that combines questions about the fight and die for the group and the tolerance towards psychological abuse behaviors. As you can see, the instructions say, what will you be willing to do to guarantee the successful operation of the group? Express your level of agreement with the following statements. There were more items than that. This is just an examples. For example, I will help new members to see that our group is better than anything outside. This is related to a dichotomicus point of view, the view all related to the group as superior, and all things that are outside as evil, degradable, of worst. Hurting others people is acceptable if it means protecting the group. This is related to violence towards outsiders. This is the other variable related to fight and die for the group. If any member acts against the interests of the group, I will punish them severely. This is related to threats and punishments towards fellow members. If my group asked me to, I will change jobs or drop my studies. This is related to isolation and control of personal life. I will monitor the members of the group to ensure compliance with the rules, and so on. There are 15 items to assess tolerance towards psychological abuse within the group, and 7 items to assess fight and die, willingness to fight and die for the group. But this is examples just so you can see what kind of items we introduced. This is a capture of the dynamic identity fusion scale. The participant with take the inner circle and introduce it or not towards the bigger circle that represents the group. In another question, they put the group that they belong at and the name change depending on what they have put in the other question. So if the inner circle that represents the participant collapses completely, we say that he or she is fused with the group. And if the inner circle, as in this picture, doesn't collapse, we say that she or he is not fused with the group. The extent to which participants were willing to engage in extreme behaviors in support of their groups and its values was analyzed, examining potential individual differences. First, this is the mean scores of the 3 measures: the fight and die for the group, fight and die for the value, and the psychological abuse tolerance. As you can see, the mean scores, apologize for the numbers now, is because the PowerPoint has some changes. The mean scores are not large, but are not 0. Remember, these are people that are members from non-violent, non-abusive groups, and they accept some kind of behaviors that represents fighting and self-sacrificing for the group, and also with a mean that it's a little bit larger for the value that represents the group. And also they agree with some behaviors that represents abuse towards other fellow members. Okay? What about the individual difference? We found in the 3 scales, in the 3 measures, the same pattern. Men were more willing to engage in these extreme behaviors than women. Younger people were more willing to engage in these extreme behaviors than older people. The time inside the group was non-significant in any of the measures. Lower status participants were more willing to conduct these extreme behaviors, and higher implicated participants were more willing to behave like this. The country in which participants had higher means were people from the States and from the United Kingdom, compared to Spanish and Mexican people. And the type of group, regarding the type of group, people from religious groups were more willing to engage in these extreme behaviors than people from non-religious groups that can be of different types. I repeat, this pattern was similar in the 3 measures. On the one hand, these were the 5 extreme behaviors that participants were generally most willing to carry out. These are the items with higher means. For example, I will fight if someone threatened this value, or I am willing to make great sacrifice for this value. As you can see, the first 3 behaviors are related to the willingness of fight or sacrifice for the value that the group represents. So sometimes now we can see that the value is more important for some people or for most of the people than the group itself. The fourth is I will make new members see that our group is better than anything outside. And the 5, I will fight if someone physically threatened another member of the group. As you can see, the three of the 5 extreme behaviors that have higher means are related to those sacred values selected by participants. Regarding the other extreme behaviors that participants are less willing to carry out, are related to violence towards outsiders and to abuse towards fellow members. Harming others is acceptable if it means protecting my group was accepted by less people than the other behaviors that I showed in the other slide. I will help others get revenge on someone who insulted my group. I will sacrifice my life if it gives me my group more social and economic power. As you can see, these are behaviors related to fight and die for the group. And then you can see I will break the laws of my country to fulfill my group's goals, or if my group asked me to, I will change job or drop out of school. As you can see, these are big sacrifice that some groups can demand to participate. Yep. Finally, we tested whether the devoted actor model was useful by examining correlation and mean difference. As you can see, regarding correlations, fight and die for the group, fight and die for the value, and tolerance towards psychological abuse is related both with fusion with the group and with fusion with the value. Correlations are higher with fusion with the group than fusion with the value. And in this last graph, you can see the mean differences in the 3 measures, comparing those participants that were devoted both to the group and to the value from those participants that were not fused neither with the group or the value. And as you can see, sorry, the numbers doesn't show. As you can see, devoted actors are more willing to fight and die for the group. They are more willing to fight and die for the value that represents the group, and they are more willing to abuse fellow members than non-devoted actors. And here are the effect size that are small but are interesting at least. Sorry. If you want, I can share the presentation, the slides. These are the first results because we gathered the database few weeks ago. So I prepared some results for this session, but we have a lot to do before publishing these results. Nevertheless, interesting findings regarding the relationship between devoted actors and the willingness to engage in extreme pro-group behaviors can be shown by these results. First, many people may be willing to carry out extreme behaviors to protect their group, and especially their shared sacred values. Many people from different groups, non-cultic groups, non-high demand groups, are willing to engage in this kind of extreme behaviors. Hopefully, in many of those groups, there's not a leader that implements an abusive dynamic. Because if someone implements an abusive dynamic, maybe those participants are not only willing to do this kind of behaviors, but they will do this kind of behaviors. Especially younger men with low group status with high involvement are more willing to do these extreme behaviors, and especially those who are members of religious groups from the States. Identity fusion with the group rather than with the value is more strongly associated with extreme actions. And in terms of implications, the results highlight the importance of implementing specific intervention with active group members. For example, encouraging critical reflection on violent behaviors as a means of defending sacred values. Okay? Promote prosocial behaviors to uphold these sacred values, such as peaceful activism or other kinds of behaviors that are non-violent. Oh, because for many people, the important thing were those sacred values. If we can, I don't know, achieve that they defend these values instead of with the violent behaviors, with other kind of prosocial behaviors, it will be good. Okay. The problem arises, as I told you, when individuals that are fused with groups are in groups that have abusive dynamics and exploit their commitment to the group and to the value. In these cases, support the fusion from such groups and encourage the search for non-abusive alternatives that defend the same values are a good intervention. I don't know if you agree with me, but many people that enter cultic groups enter with an idealistic point of view. When they departure, maybe they need alternatives to searching these values, no? But in groups or other contexts that doesn't exploit their commitment, doesn't exploit the idealization or the social intentions. These are some references that I used to make these slides and this research, and I don't know how many time we have for